This is our first time ever together.
We have some de-alcoholized wine that we're going to be drinking during this intro today.
I'm so excited. It is from Wesley, thank you, at Society de la Rossi, and it's a sparkling Chardonnay. And de la Rossi is a premium non-alcoholic sparkling wine, and it is crafted from sustainably grown vintage 2023 grapes from Spain. And basically, because it uses a vacuum distillation, it retains the flavors and the mouthfeel of like a really fine wine while still remaining under 0.5% alcohol BV.
Yeah.
What is that? ABV?
Yeah. It's also like very healthy for you. So there's no added sugar, 15 calories per glass, and they have a commitment to sustainability.
So basically, this is a luxury alternative to like your traditional champagne, like Mo and Vouv. So I'm so excited to try a luxury sparkling wine because I love starting the night off.
Yeah. So they sent us this. So thank you for that. Thank you for supporting the mission. And how much is it usually a bottle of this?
I think it's around $70 a bottle.
It's luxury. It's nice. So we really appreciate it.
And how cool that they came out with something like this, because I love having a glass of wine with dinner and like pairing that. But I have tried a few non-alcoholic wines and they're not good. Okay. So this promises to have like the authentic flavor of wine and retain that because of the way that they de-alcoholize it.
Yeah, I agree. I was planning a date night and I wanted to go to Log Cabin in Galena, and I was like, no way during dry January can I go to Log Cabin without getting wine for sure with steak. Oh my gosh. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do it?
No, you top it.
Ready?
Ooh. That's like my favorite sound in the world, to be honest. It means that something happy and fun is going on when you hear the pop of a bottle. Like,
it's celebrating.
Yeah, I definitely feel like since dry January, this is my first time ever doing it too. Yeah. So like since dry January, I feel like my view on how much I would drink is like, it literally changed a lot for me.
For sure. And I was kind of nervous. Like I said, I broke on my birthday, which was earlier this week, and we celebrated again last night. But when I broke, I was on a work trip and my boss took me out to a really nice dinner for my birthday. And so I said, yes, I'm going to have a cocktail. And I kind of was afraid that once I had one cocktail, I would go a little overboard and like
one turns into another.
But it wasn't the case. I like was so fine with just one and done. I had one cocktail. I sipped on it throughout the whole dinner. So I was pleasantly surprised that I feel like it changed me. Like normally in that situation, I'd have 2, maybe 3 cocktails throughout the course of a couple-hour dinner, you know?
A lot of people do that on conferences. I know that that's like the culture of our company too, is to like over drink because you're out of town, you're in a hotel.
You have to talk to people all day, mostly that you're not close with. So
yeah, the social aspect was really, really big for me. The only time I felt like I missed alcohol was like in social settings, but then having to do them without it was really good for me.
Yeah. And I know we touched on this in the last couple of episodes, but I've been sleeping so much better. I've been more energized throughout the day. We did kind of joke that we maybe have been a little
relaxed,
maybe not quite as efficient. I don't know.
Well, it's anxious, so it's like, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that we like lowered our cortisol levels quite a bit, but let's try this.
Okay. Ready? Cheers. We can actually cheers to each other instead of just at the screen. I know. It's easier though. Yeah. We'd be better at this if we were in person.
Do you want to move to Des Moines?
Okay.
You are remote now.
It's true. Ooh, that is spot on.
No, I'm not. Like, I'm not saying this because they sent this to us.
Like, are you sure this isn't going to get me drunk? I just don't believe this is an actual, like, champagne. It tastes like champagne.
The bubbles are really, really tiny, and I like that. I love when in a champagne or a sparkling wine when the bubbles are like pinprick small bubbles. Like it's got that really nice small bubbly feeling. Yum. This is so good. I can't get over it. It really is. And it's like, again, supposed to be the non-alcoholic version of like a Vouv or like a Dom. So like if you want to have a more luxury evening without the alcohol, this is seriously so perfect.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled.
So let's keep moving through this. I'm really excited for this episode today. The first part, we have some sound bites from some listeners that we're including. So looking forward to getting the perspective of some of our listeners and their personal journeys with sobriety.
Yes, initially we put out a call saying, hey, we're looking for a guest who would be open to talking about their sober curious or sober journey. And the amount of feedback that we received was super eye-opening. It was incredible to see the variety of experiences and people's relationships with alcohol. And so what we decided is that we wanted to gather as many viewpoints as possible.
Really excited to play those for you in this first part. And then we have an interview that we did a couple weeks ago that will be the second part with Cali Sober Mom. She lives in New Orleans, but she's initially from the Des Moines area, so another Midwest gal. And
we'll try to feature that as much as possible. You can't tell.
Yeah, so she'll share her journey of being Cali sober.
Who knows? Somebody might hear something that sparks an aha moment for them. I know that I had so many this whole month, and talking to people about this was really, really eye-opening. Again, I think it's just worth it to reflect on this in general and like what alcohol is in our society. What is it to you? What part does it play? It is important.
I agree.
There's a lot of people that can be naysayers about dry January or like taking a month break, saying that I think like their point of view is like, you know, if you have to take a break, then you have a problem. Or if you're only quitting for a month, it's not going to change.
Or if you think quitting for only a month is like a big deal, then maybe you glorify alcohol a little bit too much, kind of thing.
Yeah. But I think it's a great thing because number one, look at the conversation that we're having right now in general. And then Emerald, she said that Sober October, after her month of sobriety, she's like, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, she just never stopped.
So I think if there's a month of not drinking that makes you reflect and like, you know, change your life a little bit, like what could possibly be bad about that?
Yeah. And I think 30 days is enough to make a real impact. Like I know my relationship with alcohol, I'm not cutting it out, but it has changed forever, I think. Yeah. So let's hear from Emerald.
Hi, my name is Emerald Frummeld, and I have been living sober for the past 5 years. I started the Sober October challenge back in 2019, and I didn't quit after October 31st. I decided to keep going. I'm into endurance missions, so I'm an endurance runner, and I'm an endurance beater, which I know is not a thing, but it is for me, and if you beat, you know. But like I said, I just grew to appreciating how I felt every single day. It wasn't just the morning, but it was just in general how I felt every single day being sober. And I didn't want to stop. I just wanted to keep going with it. And at this point, I don't even think about being sober. I can just show up wherever, and it's not a big deal. So one of the biggest myths that I'd like to debunk is, and this is what I hear a lot actually, is I can't go out and enjoy myself without feeling like I have to drink with my friends or that my friends are going to pressure me. And I guess personally, in my case, that's not true. I have been able to go, like I've been in pool leagues, in bars. I love to go dancing. I enjoy live music, and I have never felt the pressure to go and do and be and enjoy myself with my friends completely sober. I guess one of the biggest pet peeves I have is like people are like, well, I didn't think you were an alcoholic, so why did you quit drinking? And it's one of those things where it's like, this is a personal relationship I had with alcohol that I felt was not healthy anymore. And it was a choice that I made for longevity of my life. Like I'm in it for the long game here, and I want to live for as long as I can, as healthy as I can. And I've seen so many improvements in my health and my well-being that I just hope that everyone would at least try it for a month. So good job with the dry January.
I thought it was interesting, and you mentioned this too, that they all kind of touch on other people's reaction to them being sober, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned like she never was like an alcoholic, so people are like, why did you quit, kind of thing, when it was just, she said she's in it for the long run, and it just was a decision that was like healthy for her. So I think other people, as you listen, kind of mentioned how other people react to hearing they're sober, and that's just something that our society has to work on.
And don't fucking ask people why they're not drinking.
Yeah, hate that.
Are you pregnant, or
Yes.
do you have a problem, or just don't ask people if they don't want an alcoholic beverage. I think things like dry January and like health challenges, like they're normalizing non-drinking more. Again, another reason why dry January is a great excuse. Like I've actually heard of somebody that I know that used dry January as a reason to quit drinking when she knew she needed to for a long time. And she just felt like she would have negative feedback from her friends. And so she's like, well, I'm doing dry January, and used that as an excuse, knowing that she was going to quit forever. But it got people to stop.
That's
Yeah. But
yeah.
like, what a great thing dry January and like sober Octobers are.
For sure.
And next up, we have Matt talking.
Yeah.
And Matt also touched on reevaluating his relationships with people and like what ties you to people.
So let's hear from Matt.
I'm Matt. I'm from Massachusetts, and I have stopped drinking, but the things that led to me making that choice were deploying while I was in the Air Force, having a son, and recent divorce and upcoming trial custody. Mentally, I feel like I put down like a kind of pound set of luggage that is, no longer my weight to carry, which has been really great. So it's comforting having it as something that's in the rear view of my life at every point. And it's a good barometer for seeing how people truly feel about you when you are able to tell people that you're not drinking anymore, and kind of gauging their reactions and finding out if that's a tie that actually was something that bound you two together. So, as the saying goes, if you wrote down a list of the kind of worst things you ever did, 9 to 95 probably involved alcohol. And for me, that was very true. And this is something that I realized was a generational curse that I did not want to perpetuate anymore, that I wanted to help be the one to break. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
It was great to hear Matt's voice, because he is a great listener and engages in a lot of our stuff. So I was excited to hear he wanted to participate.
Yeah. Cheers to non-alcoholic wine to Matt.
Yes. Okay. Next up, we have Britt.
Hi, my name is Britt, and I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. For as long as I can remember, I've had a very complicated relationship with alcohol. As a teen, I chose not to drink because I had a very typical, in my mind, religious guilt, while at the same time, funnily enough, my parents and family members were drinking every weekend in the other room. Fast forward about 12 years, and after a series of nights I don't remember, it was time to make a change. I had tried just stopping for a while and taking a break, and that didn't work. And then one night led to a decision that it just needed to stop. And at the end of the day, one of the things I have to remind myself of is that I'm doing this for me and no one else. Because if I put myself in this mindset of, hey, I'm doing this for my partner or for my job, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to choose something else over my sobriety. And it needs to be a situation where every day, every choice I make with my sobriety is being done for me. And that's what I remind myself of when things get hard. And that's what I have to lean on when I sometimes don't want to be sober.
Next up, we have Dave's story. And he recently just got out of rehab, I think, in October. So here's his story.
Hi, my name is Dave. I'm 45 years old, and I am an alcoholic. Alcohol was my life. Always having a drink like Julian from the Trailer Park Boys. I knew I had a problem for years and years and years, but I just figured I'd drink myself to death. Without my parents committing me, I think I would be dead. I was discharged October 8th, 2024, and have been sober since. I attend AA twice a week, and I really enjoy the company of others in recovery. I was such a hard drinker. People find it hard to grasp that the fact that I am over it and do not drink no more. Which kind of sucks they don't believe me. It may seem selfish, but I gotta do me this time around. I want to live life now and enjoy it. It's only been a short time, but if I can put down the bottle, I'm positive anyone can. Just got to want it. Have a day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing your story. Shelby started her sober journey very recently, so let's hear from her.
Hey guys, I'm Shelby Bedesum. I just wanted to pop on here quick and share my sober curious story. Ironically, I quit drinking just a few weeks ago, so I went from being an everyday drinker, we're talking, a quarter bottle of whiskey every night after work for the last 4 years. And I kind of got trapped in this cycle of dealing with the anxiety afterwards and depression, and you then drink again the next day to kind of try to cover up that feeling, and it works temporarily. But it then creates this just endless cycle of anxiety and depression and dependency. And my body kind of got to a point where I could tell I was just physically exhausted. It wasn't even fun to drink anymore. What little good I was getting out of it previously was not even existent anymore. So I knew it was time for a change. So I took it upon myself. December 28th was my last drink. And I have to say it was very, very difficult in the first week because I did have actual withdrawal symptoms like shaking, just not being able to sleep. But I can say that even in the worst moments, getting through those first few days, it's still better than the endless cycle that I've been experiencing with alcohol the last 5 years. And I'm here now almost a month out, and I just feel better than I have in years. I know it's so difficult to get away from the drinking scene, but it will bring more fulfillment and presence into your life. I can say I'm more present with my daughter, with my husband. So to anyone out there who's considering it, there are resources and support out there. I'm happy to be a friend, and you're not alone, and you can do it, and it's worth it. Thanks, you guys, for speaking on this topic and sharing this, because I think it's so important, especially in this day and age with the high level of stress environments that we live in. So I appreciate you guys bringing this to the table.
So I feel like we had a really, like we mentioned, a really well-rounded, different perspective.
Yeah. I feel like everybody has such a unique relationship with alcohol, and that was portrayed in the differences of the messages of people that so kindly shared their story with us.
Yeah, I agree. And now we had another different perspective. Let's go back to our conversation we had with Monica a few weeks ago.
You're going to love her so much.
Yeah, here we go.
Today we have a guest. Her name is Monica, aka the Cali Sober Mom. And Monica is a content creator, community builder, and an activist on a mission to change the conversation about alcohol, cannabis, motherhood, and mental health. And she's the owner of Cali Sober Market, opening February 2025, which we're excited to hear about. So welcome, Monica. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share and learn from you guys too.
Just to preface, the idea for this episode started because Lexi decided she wanted to commit to dry January, and I basically she didn't need to talk me into it at all. I just said, that sounds like a great idea. Me too.
You hopped right on board. Yeah.
If you're doing it, I'm doing it type of thing.
It just sounded nice to both of us at the time. It hit right after the holidays where we have been over consuming for months.
And I was just going to ask
a break.
If you did it before or after, like the decision was made before the holiday started or after.
Yeah, I kept saying I'm taking like weeks of a break. And then when it got closer to January, I was like, at this point, dry the whole month at least.
You had been saying though for a while, I think like 6 months, Lexi, you were constantly bringing up the fact that like you wanted to incorporate mocktails and you kind of wanted to cut back and like have different options rather than drink. Because I feel like the world that we live in, at least with our friends, and I don't know if it's an Iowa thing, you can probably attest to that being from Iowa, Monica, that you grow up around everybody drinking a lot, and it really consumes most every event when you are in any social setting. So
yeah, it's the way you celebrate, it's the way you relax, it's like every end of the spectrum. So
it was actually one of my biggest kind of milestones in my sobriety journey, was my very first trip back home to Des Moines and getting through that sober, because everything is based around drinking. And I come from a very proud family of drinkers, and we love to party. And so that was a very interesting experience to be around that, knowing that I'm not drinking, but also not trying to shame that everybody else still was, like not wanting other people to feel uncomfortable. So yes, other places besides Des Moines too, but the Midwest definitely has that very strong drinking culture for sure.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, you don't drink alcohol, but your form of sober, can you explain what Cali Sober is to anyone that doesn't know?
So Cali Sober, a lot of people say you choose weed over wine, essentially is the gist of it, right? But really, like deep down, what it means is Cali is more the focus on healthy and lifestyle, and it's removing toxins. So it's harm reduction. So learning what I've learned about alcohol and the poison that it is and what it does to your DNA and what it does to your brain and cancer causing, I didn't want to put that toxicity in my body anymore. But then there are plant options. So, I mean, cannabis, marijuana, hemp, whatever you want to call it. There's mushroom products. There's other ones coming out like kava, kana. So it's really choosing different ways to relax and fill that kind of need you're looking for in a more holistic, from the ground, plant base versus the toxic from alcohol or any hard drugs, which I never did anyway. But some people also say it's like no meth, no coke, no. So yes, it's none of those, but that wasn't something I was doing anyway. But that's essentially, it's harm reduction and using more natural products. And so a lot of my platform is based on the THC beverage space or edibles. And that's just because, not that I think a lot of people are like, oh, she must be stoned all day. Not true at all. But there's still so much stigma around those beverages or that way of unwinding, that I know giving up alcohol is so hard in so many ways, that I wanted to showcase, hey, I am a regular mom managing 3 kids, managing a life. It's not the stoner mentality mainstream media has served you. And so that's really where the whole background for Cali Sober Mom came, just to give moms other options besides alcohol and show moms that there are moms like them that are doing those options too as well.
Wow, I've never actually heard Cali Sober be put into those terms. And I think a lot of people who listen to this will agree that that's kind of like an eye-opening way to put it. I love that.
And
that's
the funny thing is like, I thought for sure, I live in a super conservative neighborhood, like uber conservative. And I am lucky enough that now I'm a like stay-at-home mom that does side projects, but I don't get drug tested. There's certain things that so many women can't say they use cannabis because they may still get drug tested at work. They may be in a custody or a divorce battle. There's so many ways that this can still be used against us. And I wanted to make sure that I had that space, since I do have those privileges, to kind of stand up for it more, because once I said I did it, everyone was texting me anyway. They're like, where do you get this beverage? Where do you order this edible? They just can't say it out loud. And again, that's a lot of what this is, because like you said, so people are only going to have that negative context, or they just do it quietly and secretly. This gives us more of an open space to talk.
Yeah. And depending on where you are, it may not be 100% legal yet.
Yes, there's still Iowa and Louisiana are actually very similar in how our states are set up with that. So
okay.
that's been another part of this big education need, is that people don't know, and they're not talking about it regularly in mainstream circles. And there's a lot of like political warfare going on behind the scenes, all to control this. And there's certain reasons some states are the way that they are. And it's just been a whole fascinating thing. So it did not start as this mission to do all of this, but all these things you keep learning, like you guys probably are as you do this podcast, as you talk about things out loud and you get messages and you get responses or stories. For what the mainstream title is, there's so much deeper things happening. So
is there any other part of your mission of why you decided to start Cali Sober Mom?
I wanted to be an example in the world for my kids, to be honest with you. When I started learning, so it wasn't just giving up alcohol. Like alcohol was a big issue for me, and there's so many situations that led to that like boiling point. But I started doing a lot of research because I found out I was ADHD, shocker. So I deep dived and hyper focused into the truth about alcohol and how and why it's been glorified. But then on the vice versa, I also did a lot of research into why cannabis and THC was villainized and made illegal. And you can't learn that about the world and sit back and do nothing, for me at least. And I know I can't change the world all by myself, but I wanted to be able to look at my kids and be like, this is a pattern. This isn't great. And I want to say something and be loud about it and not just do what everyone else is doing to keep comfortable. And it can be a really hard space to be in because sometimes you shine a mirror back on people that they don't want to see. But I wanted to be that person for my kids. So that's a lot of what the platform is.
Wow. What you said about shining the mirror back is really interesting because even just doing dry January, this is 1 month, okay? Like the people in my life are like, well, why would you do that? And you know that they're just kind of reflecting on their own habits or like being defensive about that.
It's been, I like to say people don't know what they don't know. And that's really where, again, like having the alternatives comes in so much like handy because I can have an alternative out. And like I talk about this on my platform and I will post on Instagram and I'll do that. But in my day-to-day life, unless someone's asking me directly about it, I don't like bring it up when we're all out for drinks. Like I still go out with my friends that drink and I have my alternatives. And if they ask, I'll talk about it. But yeah, some people like have really, they've shown their colors and unfortunately they just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And yeah, if they're used to drinking with you, it might be really hard for them because they'll have to think, oh, do I have a drinking problem? And as you just have to learn that that's not you, that's them. And that is a really, really hard lesson to learn and just try to let roll off because it is going to hurt for a little bit.
Definitely. If you're open to discussing, how did alcohol fit into your life before this change? And was it social, habitual, or something else?
I have been partying since I was 14. So one thing about me, I love to party. I love to have fun. I have now learned that the reason I went to alcohol so young is we have family use and abuse and history. And so I saw it, it's in the genes, however you want to call it. But I also had undiagnosed ADHD, which is something I didn't learn until I stopped drinking, started learning myself and went to therapy. But I've learned that that was always my go-to to stop my brain. Like it numbed my brain. It kept it from going crazy. It is a dopamine hit when you have alcohol. And I've learned that I'm an extreme dopamine chaser. Like I want more and more dopamine. And you don't know that you're doing that. It's weird. Dopamine is fascinating. I think everyone should learn about it. But so I always used it and I always partied and I had never where I wasn't like getting my stuff done but it was abused by all means. And then I partied all through 20s, 30s. I mean, I married a bar owner. My husband and his family own bars in New Orleans. Like I'm married into that type of lifestyle and family. And it was just always my go-to, and I abused it. And, you would wake up and you'd realize and you'd say, I'm never drinking again. And I cannot tell you how many times I tried to quit. And then I had I had 3 kids in 18 months. Kind of the precipice that made me quit is my first daughter was born November 2020. And then 9 months later, I got pregnant with twins, and our twins were born
Wow.
June of 22. So 3 kids in 18 months. But the twin delivery, comedy of errors is the best way to describe it. Everything that could possibly go wrong in that delivery room that night went wrong. And my son came out one push super easy. My girl, I ended up being emergency C-section, like put under, like they were cutting in and putting anesthesia over me at the same time. I did my first episode on it. It's a story. And I almost died. My daughter almost died. And they just send you home with all that trauma. Most of what I later found out by pulling my own medical records. And so you're sent home you have 3 kids in 18 months. You have these hormones flowing through you. You just had this extreme trauma in the hospital that your brain knows about, but you don't even fully know about or processed yet. And you're just home. And then my girl twin, and this is the reason I pulled the records later, is because we had a lot of issues with her from like 6 weeks on. And it just sent me into the worst spiral of like postpartum depression and anxiety. And it was one of those moments where all I knew how to do, the only coping mechanism I'd known my whole life was drinking. You just pick up that glass of wine and it de-stresses you, but then it kept going and too far. And nothing like bad happened at home, but it was one of those, like, it wasn't going good. And it was like, I've got to find a way to not let this happen, or that is all that's going to happen. And so that was kind of the tipping point for me. And that was April of 23. So it's been in every aspect of my life: dating, work, adolescence, teenage, partying, college, like every single aspect.
Wow. And it
Yeah,
probably
that's-
took quitting to look back and realize that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. Like, I'm not here to say you're going to put down the wine and be okay, or you're going to put down the wine and pick up a THC beverage and you're going to be okay. But if
Mhm.
you're drinking more than you're comfortable with, if that's even triggering in your brain, then there's probably also some like deeper inner work that'll be done at some point. And yes, mine was very intense. Like, I had a lot to work through. But that helped me make this a permanent life decision, and has just made me so much healthier, and realizing why I want to grab for a drink, or why I went for that, or what I was suppressing in myself that was making me sad, and just really coming into the most fullest version of myself has been really fun. And I don't know if you follow a lot of like sober influencers or content creators, but anyone after like a year on of being alcohol free who had it in their life regularly, they just exude the most fun energy, happiness about life, optimist outlook. Like, you can just really tell when someone's like not only kicked the habit of the alcohol, but also moved a step forward in their mentality with it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, we actually have a friend that has a platform. I see it in her too, so that makes sense. So that was your relationship with alcohol. Were you always dabbling in THC, or was that something you started to dabble into as an alternative later, or what was your relationship with that?
Definitely an alternative later. So I tried it a bunch, like through high school, like I had it here and there. And again, it was me learning about my dopamine that
Yeah.
didn't hit those dopamine receptors, and you didn't know anything. You're smoking, or you're having whatever your friend has, or it wasn't. So who knows what I was even consuming back then when I tried it.
It's so true.
Right? Like now that I'm learning there's terpenes and there's strains and there's way to grow it. And I'm like, I was probably smoking bottom of the barrel trash, but I never had fun on it. Like I got super paranoid. I got super anxious, and someone that had ADHD, hyper, like it did not go well with me because of how I was consuming, not knowing anything about it. And so I just stayed away from it because I was like, well, I have no fun with that. And alcohol made me happy. So then when this happened in 23, the whole medical marijuana program had come out, and I knew more people that were using it in different forms, no longer just whatever you get from your guy. It's like, okay, no, this edible does this, or this strain does this. And so I was able to talk to people that kind of knew more than me. And they were like, no, girl, like you want a teeny tiny corner of an edible to try. But that's when I started trying the beverages and the edibles and found like a very small microdose that worked for me. And I was able to relax and just calm my brain and be patient with my kids versus needing the drink.
Yes, it's very cool to see that there are alternatives, especially like you said in Des Moines, the climbing kites really became popular. If you're at a music festival or something downtown, you'll see a lot of people choosing that over the alcohol, especially with all of the studies that have come out lately about the fact that there's quite literally no benefit to drinking alcohol. I think people are really turning to alternatives, and it's really cool to see this happen. What are your thoughts on the mom wine culture and how it's portrayed in society? And maybe not so much just the mom wine culture, but how alcohol is portrayed in society.
This is a topic I'm very passionate about. I wrote an article for, I think, Green State, so I can send that to you guys too. And what makes me really, really upset in this whole process that I've gotten on is learning the way that Big Alcohol took Big Tobacco's playbook and just copied it. And so for the last 60, 70 years, they've been using very advanced psychology, marketing, mainstream media to paint a narrative that isn't true. And just like Big Tobacco did back in the day, they funded certain studies and they funded certain headlines, and they're the main advertiser for your, major news platforms and your TV platforms. And so they kind of control what type of message goes on there. And mommy wine culture is a 100% fabricated marketing plan. And that is what makes me sick to my stomach, because motherhood is so hard. It is so freaking hard. And what we go through. And I mean, I think the tables are starting to turn a little bit now, but like, God, I can't imagine moms before us and like kind of the lack of support and respect they had as women and help and share the mental load. Like, it is so hard. And they spent billions of dollars to tell women that if you have this glass of wine, that makes everything better. That's what mommy wine culture is, right? Have the wine to relax because it's so hard. And all that was doing was making it worse. And there's studies that show that, but they've been buried. And so they've specifically targeted women as the prime demographic for wine and for money spending, when they know that it makes anxiety worse. It makes your stress worse. It damages your DNA. It messes with your hormones, causes empty calories, causes you to gain weight, and is physically addictive. And that's what I'm mad about. Not moms doing it. I'm mad that this was lied and sold to us all for corporations to make money. And I think mommy wine culture in its core for us as consumers can be amazing if we switch what's in our glass, because as a way of bonding together, in a way of like texting my friend, oh my God, can you believe this happened? I'm totally having a seltzer tonight, right? Like, I want those bonds, and I want to go over to my mom friend's house and have one can of beverage at 5:00 and bond and help her with laundry if she needs it. Or like, I want that. I just don't want it to be all for profit while they try to kill us, for lack of better words.
It was so So interesting to think of it like that. Interesting to see when you compared it to tobacco, my head immediately went to how much they promote how terrible it is for you now. And I'm just trying to think down the line, is that going to be what alcohol is like?
It's definitely coming. They are just spending billions of dollars in lobbying money to slow it while they're all pivoting in the background. So it most definitely is coming. But if you research like how big tobacco went down, it didn't happen overnight. They slowly desensitize you and wait as so the next generation is growing up hearing how bad it is and getting away from it as they slowly move their current customers over to something else. So yeah, it's coming. It'll just be a 10 to 15 year process, just like big tobacco did.
That was kind of my thought, that the younger generations seem a lot more like I don't think their drinking culture is quite as heavy as ours was even when we were younger. So that's a good sign.
Yes, Gen Z seems to have a lot less of their population who drink alcohol, and I think they are either sober or turning to cannabis more so. So it's kind of cool to see the next generation come up that way because they're making strides and obviously evolving our human species.
But keep in mind why they're making strides, because they've seen, God, I could be a Gen Z's parent probably. I'm almost 39 or like borderline Gen Z parent, right? You see what your generations before you do and you see how ridiculous it is, right? So it's like, man, how bad did we have to be to turn Gen Z away from drinking in the world that we live in right now? Like,
it's so true.
It is. So there's definitely a huge rise to the sober curious movement, whether it's organic or it's people turning away from it. What are your thoughts on that? What are you seeing being so involved in this community?
So there was actually a mindful drinking festival this past weekend in DC. So, and it was its 4th year, I think. Yeah. And I was like, that is so awesome. 4th year of a mindful drinking fest. This past summer, I went up to Minneapolis and there was a THC beverage festival, which is awesome. In January, they're having a high and dry festival. So no alcohol and different like mushroom and canna beverages down in St. Pete. And so I think you're going to slowly see it coming about. I just heard in at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, they have a sober section.
Yeah, I saw that. And I love that. Especially Wisconsin has such a huge drinking culture too. So for them to be the first ones that I know of, that's awesome.
And I think just everyone having conversations like this, like it's getting it out there and saying why I'm doing it. What led to this? What have I learned? And this is why I'm choosing it. And then leading by example after that versus like lecturing people or making it seem like they're a bad person for still choosing that. I think there's just so many more people that are being open and sharing and having these great conversations that it's going to become so much more normalized that it will no longer be like, oh, you must be pregnant if you're not drinking, you know? So I think it's going to take a little while, but every day I say there's no better time to quit drinking because it's never been as widely accepted as it will be today. And then tomorrow it's going to be even more widely accepted. So every day it's going to keep getting easier and easier versus what it was even 2 years ago, or for some of the people 5 years ago. So I think it's going to be fun seeing that transition happen.
Yeah, for sure.
It is crazy to get people's reactions when you say that you're not drinking. And as women, the first thing is, are you pregnant? And it's like, you're almost scared not to drink because you don't even want to be asked that, which is so sad, right? Or, oh, she must have a problem if she's quitting drinking. Like, it doesn't mean that someone necessarily has an issue or a problem. They're choosing not to, intake alcohol.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it is.
But it is getting better.
It should be that simple.
I actually went out for the first time and grabbed mocktails with my friends who were drinking alcohol the other night, and I was impressed. The 2 places we stopped at in Dubuque, Iowa, had mocktail menus. So I thought that was cool. I didn't know what to expect, and they had spirit-free options like spirit-free tequila. I tried that. So I was happy. That's a big deal for Dubuque, honestly.
That's a huge deal for Dubuque. That's a huge deal for anywhere. There's still plenty of places I go down here that have 0 alternatives. They'll be like, I can get you a Coke. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, just seeing them on menus and having something where, because we still want to have fun. We
Yeah.
still want to go out. We still want to hold something cute and bubbly. Like,
Yeah.
that's never changed. And so bars and restaurants are actually missing the boat if they don't offer these alternatives. Because if someone wants to drink, they're going to drink. They're not going to see your mocktail and be like, oh, I can't be here. But if they bring someone that doesn't want an alcohol drink and you don't have options, they're going to order a water. And there went $10 or $12, out the door for that business. So.
Right. This is a 2-part question. So let's start with what has been the most challenging part of your sobriety journey, and then let's end with the positive of what has been the most rewarding.
I think it's the same answer almost.
Ooh, okay.
The most challenging part was having to learn myself. And that is because I never did. Like, I learned that, like, I had always been masking. And, like, yes, I was me, but, like, I'm learning there were deeper me's in there and passions. And I don't know the best way to describe it. But when I went to therapy, she was like, so tell me about yourself. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, she's like, what makes you happy? And I was like, I really don't know if I know the emotion happy or if. And so that was challenging because I never really allowed myself to feel. I always numbed and explore and those type of things because I was always too much for something or too far for that or too out there. And I had expertly learned how to navigate and mask through life, not even realizing you're doing it. That's the scary part. So that was hard, really hard, because you have to really go inward and you might not like some things about yourself, and you have to face decisions that you made that might not have been the best, or relationships. And so that was challenging. But now that I'm coming out of it and like just my most true self at the core being that I didn't even know existed. Like, I didn't know that level of just being and calmness existed and feeling so comfortable in my own skin and who I am. Oh God, it feels good. So it's a 2-parter, same answer, but in different viewpoints.
I love that.
So you kind of mentioned and touched a little bit when you said what one of the most challenging parts and the most rewarding parts is your relationships with others and really having to reflect on those. How has your decision impacted your role as a mom and your relationship with others?
My relationship as a mom, is that what you said first?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, y'all. I am the best mom ever. No. Not like textbook, but the best mom I could be for my kids. Like, whatever they were going to get from me, they're getting the best of me is what I should say. By all means, there are better moms out there. But there's just now this like things that would easily annoy me and frustrate me and kind of drive me up the wall. It's so much easier now to just like take a step back, address the situation, and like lean into it almost, because as I'm having to learn myself and learn emotions and learn how I feel, I'm essentially learning emotional regulation for myself the exact same time I'm trying to teach my children emotional regulation, because my kids are 4 and 2.5. And so it's kind of awesome in that sense. It's not perfect, but now instead of just like getting so flustered, I'm able to be like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Because that's what therapy has taught me. What's the root cause of why I'm feeling this way? How can I help them realize that and work through it? And so it's made me such a better mom in that. Cannabis makes me a better mom to enjoy playing. I have no idea if you guys enjoy playing with your kids or if you have kids. I haven't even asked that. But I hate playing. Like, I really do. It's hard. I don't know what to do. And my anxious brain would always think about that, I guess. But when I take just a low dose of cannabis, I'm just free. I'm not thinking about the dishes. I'm not thinking about the tasks that need to be done. Like, I can just sit and play Legos or Spidey characters. And so it's made me more fun and more present and better attuned to their emotions. So that's me as a mom, how it's changed. And then in terms of relationships, there's been some ups, there's been some downs. Mostly ups. Almost everything has mainly been positive. And I know a couple times I was having a really hard time. A friend put it to me in a way that made so much sense. And she was like, Monica, you've now had, let's say it was like a year. You've had a year to learn this version of you and how you interact with the world and who you want to be. We're all learning it when we see you in small pieces. So be gracious with people. And I'm like, that is a really good way to put it. I don't have to just expect them to accept this new version of me completely. I can be gracious with them, but there are certain boundaries that I have set. So if anything is mean-spirited or hurtful, anything like that that just crosses a boundary that I'm not okay with, then that's been the one or two relationships that have changed. And that is what it is, right? Like, you can't change them. And if that's how, you got to set your boundary for what you're willing to accept and not accept. So,
wow, this like really puts into perspective like how big of like almost a rebirth this can be.
100%. Yes. Rebirth. I actually bought a piece of artwork this past weekend that was about like the rebirth process. I saw it and was like, that is me. 100% a rebirth. And again, it's not just putting down the alcohol. If you've heard the term dry drunk, and I think that's what I was in the past when trying to quit alcohol, was that I always looked at it as like, oh, well, I just can't have that. I just can't handle that. I can't do this. And I never changed. All I did was remove the substance. But this time, removing the substance and finding alternatives that still helped along this path and doing that work of learning, that's really what I think fully flipped it over to the rebirth. So that's just something to be aware of. Like, if you do just put down the alcohol and you think that, I hate to say this, you think it's all the alcohol's fault, it's not. There's a reason, not that it's your fault, but there's something in you that you might not even realize that was using that, or that you need to heal, or even just say out loud or something like that. So I always highly recommend therapy too, but I don't push that on anyone by any means.
Yeah, that can be somewhat of a touchy subject, depending on the
one
person.
touchy subject at a time. You know, I'm already going with alcohol and cannabis, and then you want to throw therapy or the political warfare I got into. Like,
just trying to ruin
I can really overwhelm
lives.
some people. Yeah. I'm just going to shake you all the way up.
So we talked about how it affected your relationships in your life. How did you notice any changes in your physical health after quitting?
I'm going to have to send you all before and after. I have never felt beautiful until 38. Like, and I look back on pictures and be like, that was stupid. You were not like hideous, but like, I never felt good about myself and good in my appearance. And I lost 40 pounds without even trying.
Wow.
Just by not drinking booze. Cause you know, then it spikes your blood sugars too. And then you don't want to, you know, if you're doing something, you don't want to walk or go up the stairs because you're carrying that weight, you're tired. There's so many things. And so without even trying, I had a lot of people ask me if I had used Ozempic. And I'm not against anyone using it, but I was like, no, I literally just gave up booze. Like, I had a problem.
The timing was just perfect for the Ozempic.
The timing. Yeah. I'm like, man, I did all this hard mental work. No, and I don't mind people asking me by any means either. But yeah, it's just, there was this lightness, like you lose 40 pounds. My skin just got gorgeous, like in comparison to what it was. My hair's fuller, healthier. Yeah, just like everything physically changed for the better.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I didn't know. I already feel more energized, like I'm sleeping better and things like that, but I don't notice a physical difference. It'll be interesting to see if by the end of the month something like that happens, but I'm sure, yeah, like you said, it takes time and it's very gradual.
Yeah, you'll definitely see some and then bigger ones. I mean, obviously, as time goes on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I know, I feel so good, and it's only been 2 weeks, and like me and Lexi have said, we're probably like 2 to 3 times a week drinkers. And even that, like you're right, the next day to get up and work out, like it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day also, like I want to eat like a sub sandwich or something salty and carby, because you just feel like that. I don't know if it's the blood sugar or what it is,
Yeah.
but you just don't feel right.
It all bleeds together. Yeah. And
So
even after grabbing mocktails with my friends on Saturday night, I woke up on Sunday and I keep saying, gosh, I'm so happy I'm not hungover at all. It feels so good to wake up on the weekend and just get stuff done. And
yeah, and it's like it's literally making me like rethink like wow, like how many days during the week I was drinking is like ridiculous.
yes, I don't know what it will look like going forward. I don't miss it at all at this point because there are so many alternatives, but I definitely know that I need to cut back regardless of what happens after this. I know that even the three nights a week were way too much for me.
Yeah.
And what I preach to is it's harm reduction. Like, not everybody necessarily has to go completely alcohol free, right? I know for me, I had to because of the dopamine issue. Mine was if I even take one sip, my brain's going to go on fire with dopamine, and you don't know that you're loving dopamine. It happens unbeknownst to you. And so that's why knowing what I know now for me and about alcohol, I'm like, there's no reason for me to even risk that flood happening in my body and going back. But not everyone used alcohol because of that reason. And so it's all about harm reduction. So even if you cut back one night a week or 2 nights a week, whatever it is, that's less than you were putting in your body before. And that's great.
Definitely.
So true.
What advice would you give to whether it's moms or anybody considering a Cali sober lifestyle?
Ooh. Cali sober specifically or alcohol free?
Alcohol
I don't
free.
even know. Don't do it alone. So, in terms of not that everyone has to do it with you, but find someone you love and trust to talk about why you're doing it, because I had to do that with my husband, and that helped me so much. There were times like I knew he couldn't fully understand what I was feeling and going through, but he knew the why behind it and what I wanted out of it. And he was such a huge support, and you never know when you're going to need that support. So if it is something, I definitely recommend, or even if it's an accountability friend or a mocktail partner, whatever it is, just don't feel like you have to go through it alone. And then research. There's some really good books out there, and learning more helped me solidify my decision. So I read Annie Grace, This Naked Mind, and it really helped me learn basically the marketing and psychology behind a lot of the reasons why we drink. And then there was Quit Like a Woman. It wasn't necessarily my favorite, but what I loved about that book was how it really broke down how alcohol took Big Tobacco's playbook. And so that really gave me that education again on how it's been marketed to me, which you don't know how many decisions you make based on marketing you don't even realize you're being marketed to. So yeah, find good books, do research, and have someone you trust to talk to. And if you don't have someone you trust, there are so many sober canna content folks out there that all we want to do is help. So send us a message, ask a question. Research, and don't feel like you have to do this alone.
Yeah. Speaking of, where can they find you?
Where you can find me mainly is Instagram. I do Cali Sober Mom and post stuff there. In there, there's a link, or you can go to our website, calisobermom.com, and there's a link to the newsletter. That is, I do a little bit better in like long form than I do short form videos. So that's really where I try to break down more things. And then if you're ever in the Louisiana area in New Orleans, we're opening Cali Sober Market. And so we'll have a centralized space to come buy alcohol alternatives, can beverages, but we're also about to open the Instagram for that too. So we'll be doing a lot of like mocktail recipes, places or like different ones to try, how you can order it if you're not in Louisiana. And that is Cali Sober Market.
Okay.
Maddie, remember where I keep saying I want to go on a girls trip too.
I actually looked at a lot of plane tickets today, and I was looking for my next trip. Maybe like next month. Would you go for a long weekend? Good stuff.
Yeah.
And you're opening
I
in
will.
February, correct?
Yes, the goal is to open February 1st and just be operational, work the kinks out as we're open. And then Mardi Gras is huge down here. Like we're in prime party season right now. And so whereas the rest of the country does like dry January and their resolutions, we're in free for all mode right now. And then Mardi Gras this year is March 4th. And so March 5th kicks off Lent season. And this is when everyone in Louisiana kicks in for their resolutions and a lot of non-drinking starts. And so technically open February to work out the kinks. And then March 5th on is like we're hitting the ground running hard.
Wow. You're in a heavily heavy drinking city. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
We own
Party
bars.
city.
Like that is what I tell people. I'm like, you guys, if I'm willing to talk about why I don't drink, when I own bars, well, my husband owns bars, I'm willing to lose revenue. Like, let a light bulb go off for a second.
Yes.
1 second, please.
That is so true.
I
Well,
love it.
we will tag you in the description of this episode, and we'll also list the book recommendations that you gave, as well as your website and handles. And again, thank you so much for sharing your personal journey. And we are seriously honored that you were willing to open up and explore this important topic. And hopefully, you just never know. Maybe we gave someone their aha moment or validated somebody who was already thinking about this. So what you do is super important. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. This has been great. And thank you for asking real questions, not just surface level, looks good on a magazine. That's really important to people. So thank you for doing that.
You're so welcome.